Good evening, Warriors! Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. Good evening, guys. I'm doing this one on the evening of the 5th of March. We'll probably end up posting it tomorrow morning, so hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are continuing on your plan, on your purpose. Continue to see things that are important inside of yourself, my friends, and seeing things that really focus on the key things about life, and that's the internal spiritual types of things that are within you. So before we get into the actual topic, let's go ahead and talk about some shout outs here. And Thomas, let's go back to Thomas Van der Sman, thank you, my friend. John Lewis, Kelijah Warrior, we're going to talk about female companionship in SR and focusing how a woman can be companion, but not focusing on the physical aspect of things that are going to help you become a better person based on that woman. Antonio is talking about knuckleheads always are mad at warriors. Yes, you're right, my friend. People who don't understand, who are jealous, they're jealous of your energy. Women will want you. I see it every day. I don't care if I'm married. I don't care if whoever you are, the women are still approaching you. They're still flirting with you. They still understand what you have, and they want that. And men are jealous of it because they realize that women know this, and subconsciously they don't like it, and so they're going to be mad at you because they can't take that type of person you are. But you never change, warriors. You are the warrior because of that reason. Federic Alliali, other retainers, yes, we'll talk about that a little bit too. Mike, calmer as time goes on. You're right, Mike. I agree with you 100%. I'm at 1,005 days or something like that, and I always feel calm. I can get excited about, screaming battle on and these other types of things, but in the long run, really, I've never felt so calm in my life, and I love it. So you're 100% right on target. St. James, talking about Kundalini and pineal gland. We'll talk about that in a separate one. I Lion, demons are after you. You're right about that, I Lion. They're coming at you all the time. You got to stay strong. That's all I can say. Billy Mainwaring, Antonio, Vladimir Jovanov, thank you. Peaceful Being, CB460X2. And Jerry Herrera talks about needing a podcast. And you're right, Jerry. I just don't have the time right now. I'm more worried about getting this message out and talking about things than anything else. But you're right. We need to kind of open up a podcast and get those things going. And I will eventually. Open source as well. Okay, guys. So at 250 here, let's talk about our topic. Sanju gave us a nice topic they want to talk about. He's asking about Brahmacharya and semen retention. I'm going to broaden a little bit out too to talk about Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism as well. I'll save Christianity for another time, but let's talk about these as we talk about them. All right, so what is the common type of idea with all of these? Well, warriors, the common idea of all these types of religions, and actually Christianity is no different if you look at this, is really talking about knowing thyself. Knowing the content, the conduct, everything is within yourself. You're trying to become more in touch with yourself. All of this becomes in touch with God, your creator. Someone is touching you internally. And I think this is where we talk about the difference in a person. When we talk about semen retention, we're talking about being able to have some level of self-control. That means you're exerting some control over your body to say, I am no longer going to do this activity. As a result of that, you become more in tune with your body. And this is why famous people have said over the years that the longer the streak goes, the more closer they feel to God. And that is very true. I feel like this right now myself, and I'm only at 1,000 days and practically, moving into my third year, I think, almost the third year, focusing on this. And this is a very true statement in my book. Because as time goes on, you become more aware that the things outside of you are not that important. What do I mean by that? Well, this is what Jesus was talking about when he talks about a rich man. It's very hard for a rich man to get to heaven. It's like a needle through a haystack trying to get through. Because you don't want to give up all these treasures you have. But the idea is as you're on this streak, as you're not focusing on a physical types of entities, whether it's a woman's body, whether it's a picture of a woman, things like that, that transfers to everything else around you. Therefore, money is not that important. Therefore, cars are not that important. And as you get older, in my case, I'm 61, you now feel that there's a lot less needs you have. You know, my kids are older, they're having their own families and kids. I don't have the same sort of needs that I had when I was in my 20s. But even in my 20s, you start seeing a different type of world. That's not the physical world. That doesn't identify you. What identifies you is inside of yourself. And this now becomes a spiritual, your soul, whatever you want to kind of call this type of thing that you're learning. And all these religions talking about knowing thyself and inner, your true self, they're getting at that point because what you're doing is you're leaving the physical world in a mental state. You're leaving that world because that's not that important to you anymore. What's important to you is your inner self, the joy and peace you feel every day. And I can't tell you how great that feels. And that's something that I've started feeling a lot more over the last couple years because of the streak. And it's because you're keeping your nutrients, you're keeping what God has given you. I mean, when you look at the biblical texts, they're not talking about releasing all the time. I've never seen one that said you should be releasing all the time. The purpose of what God gave us was to procreate. Now, the evil one has put a whole different twist on this and has used the world to kind of brainwash us since we were small that you should have sex all the time. This is what your pleasure really comes from, the physical world. But remember, guys, as you get more into these religions and you figure out as you get closer to God that God is not talking about the physical world. He's talking about beyond the physical world. The physical world is only one part of it. And you know that because when you see someone pass away, they're in the coffin. That person's no longer there. That person is a shell. So this is a shell that we have, no matter how you look right now. Now, yes, you could do things to make yourself look better, but are you looking better on the outside, or are you looking better on the inside, and all the outside does is reflect what the inside is? I believe it's the latter case. I believe all the things you're doing on the inside, building up the relationship with your Lord, building up those type of chakras, building up that energy forces, all those things you're doing makes you look like a great person on the outside. Because once you pass away, this shell is gone no matter what it looks like. But what happens in the inside is you're building stronger and stronger connections with the person that created you and allowed you to stay on this earth as you see it. And as a result of that, they become then your life force. And your life force becomes strong. And your life force then becomes something that is not physical, but it's everything else around that. And this is why we talk about the fact that this retention is only for certain people. They don't want to leave that physical world. And that's why they're going to fight to the end to keep that physical world. But as Cleopatra and Caesar and all these people found out, they can't take all that gold with them. They can't bury it. They could try to bury it. I think with the Egyptians, they tried to bury it. But it's going nowhere. It just sits there, right? And all of a sudden, the currency changes and it's worth nothing. Guys, the stuff you see in front of you, I don't care how good looking this person is. I don't care how nice a car this is. This is only passing. This is only a physical thing. It means very little in the scheme of things. Money means a lot of things. You can look at what's happening with cryptocurrency and gold and all these things. I mean, very possible our currency will be changing soon. They happen in Russia. They happen always over the years. They think this money is the end of all ends. Happiness. It's not. It's not. Can it bring you some things that can eventually make you temporarily happy? Sure. Sure, you can be happy with money for a temporary situation. And if you have money, you feel your lifestyle's easier. But is it truly easy? What's going to happen, my friends, to a lot of these people is they put themselves in a box. They truly get trapped of all the trappings of it. I mean, look at that basketball player recently. You know, he's a $12 million player. He's sitting there with guns in a strip joint and things like this. This is not how warriors behave. This is, trying to be a thug. This is not how warriors behave. Warriors behave in a manner they know they're good. They know they're strong. They don't need to prove themselves by showing around flashing guns and all this other kind of nonsense. This is people who are immature with the money and the things that God's given them. And it comes back to haunt them. And they all pay the kind of penalty of not being able to know God, and they think they're God. And this is what happens. People believe they're God. And, they think that they have a certain skill that's God given them, but they don't want to thank God. They think it's all them. And so basically, in the long run, they lose it all. And that's why it's important not to focus on the physical, but focus on the internal. So we'll talk about this more in other type broadcasts, but Brahmacharya, a lot of the Hinduism, Buddhism, these are all important when it comes to semen retention, because the more and more you can kind of get within yourself and find out about yourself and have the relationship with God, the better off you're going to be in the long run. All right, so Sanju, thank you for that comment. I want to just make a quick comment. I have done others on Brahmacharya a little longer, and we'll come back to it at some point, because once again, it's the whole lifestyle that we're talking about here. Finding out, sacrificing things in the real world to kind of more, kind of get that relationship within yourself more, to understand you, and then understand how you relate to what God's purpose is really important. So again, guys, have a good evening, and remember 2 things as always. 1, remember, every day is a new day to a wise warrior. I keep saying that different ways, but that's what I meant. And number 2, continue, my friends, to battle on!